I'm James George, and today I'm joined by Garrett Bosworth from Cal West Property Inspections. How are you, Garrett?
Doing real good, James. How about yourself?
I am good. So we're going to talk home inspections today. So first of all, I want to know, what's your history and how did you get into home inspections?
Well, I got into home inspections because it was something that interested me, and I've always been a hands-on type of guy. I had a metal fabrication business before this. My dad was a general contractor, and I just grew up on job sites and really understand how the house is put together.
Yeah, I mean, I have very limited, I struggle to put a shelf up. So it's one of those that I would be absolutely useless at a job like this. And I gather you've really got to have experience in kind of like a few different aspects to really be able to see, what is wrong with a property.
Yeah, it definitely helps. There's a lot of, even though most things are stationary, we call it a lot of moving parts that come together to really build a house. And just the way they're put together and the environment around them over time can have a lot of effects on the house. And we view that as our responsibility to go through the house before someone's buying it and trying to identify any neglect over the years that's caused some maintenance that might need to happen. Components have expected lifetimes, and we try to identify components that might be towards the end of their life, like a water heater or a furnace. And of course, look for any safety issues that might cause harm.
I mean, obviously experienced home buyers and sellers will know what a home inspection is. But for the brand new buyer who's never done this before, what can they expect with a home inspection?
Well, on the home inspection day, it's not as exciting as most people think. It's actually good if it's a boring inspection, and we have an exciting inspection. It usually means we found something that needs to be addressed. So we're really hoping for kind of a lackluster day on home inspection day. Typically, they'll take 2 to 4 hours to complete. A lot of it depends on the size of the house and just some other issues we might run into out there. Sometimes when we find something that looks suspicious, it takes a little bit of time to fully diagnose and chase it back to its origins. Other times on a real straightforward house, there's not many challenging things to identify, and we're kind of just going through looking for wear and tear type items that they might not have noticed during the open house or a time that they walked through.
And you literally go through every single room, check every single tap and faucet. You're checking the electrical, the water heater, the roof. You're doing pretty much the whole house, aren't you?
Absolutely. All the components of the house are critical. They work off one another. And so they kind of do need to be working in harmony. And we do make sure that they are all functioning together. The roof is a very important aspect of it, just as much so as some of our other components, like the hot water heater. Not only does it supply us with hot water, but a gas water heater can present safety issues to the occupants. And we just want to make sure everything's dialed on that and it was installed correctly and going to last you as it should.
And how does it look in regards to a home inspection when you get it through, just so that people understand, who haven't done it before? What does it look like? When we get it through as a real estate agent and the client, what would a home inspection look like?
So I'm not sure I totally understand the question. Are you asking more about the report or the inspection?
Yeah, what does the report look like?
Okay, so reports historically have been challenging to read, and luckily technology is finally coming into our industry and making it a lot more user-friendly to identify issues within the report. Historically, they've been very word-heavy, like in a PDF type form. Nowadays, we have online web-based reports that are organized by each room and category, where each defect has its own group of pictures with the location and a description of what's wrong and why that's a problem. And sometimes we'll even go into how to fix it if it's an easy fix that the homeowner can do.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to mention about anyone getting a home inspection done is that there's going to be a million things on that report, right? And if most of the time there is, it's very rare that you get just a handful of things. It's often a long list of often smaller items. The key things I always focus on is the more expensive items. They're the ones, when we do, so when you have the home inspection, we as a real estate agent, we send over a request for repairs and we ask for items to be, either, fixed, replaced, or we'll often ask for a credit. I always say, let's just focus on the high ticket items, the items that are going to be more expensive. If it needs a new air conditioning unit, if it needs a new roof, if there are, if there's mold or if there's a foundation crack, something that might cost you more money. Sometimes people get really fixated on all the small stuff, like a leaky faucet. And often these items will cost you $25 to get fixed by someone. And so I always recommend to just focus on the high ticket items when that happens.
And you're absolutely right. And that is something we see from time to time with clients. We, as a company, we encourage our clients to come on the inspection day. We don't make them stick around for the entire inspection, but the most important part about coming to the inspection day with your clients is to hear that wrap up with the home inspector. And that's something that we talk about during our wrap ups, just to make the client familiar with what they're about to see. And yeah, the report can seem a little overwhelming when you first view it, if you're not used to seeing reports, because there is so much, like a little carpet stain or a door ding on the wall, a little drywall damage. There's all kinds of little things that we put in the reports just because clients have that expectation of us documenting the house, even though it might not be significant to the actual real estate transaction going on. We're dealing with a, $500 to $1.5 million property here. If we're going to kill the deal over a $75 faucet that leaks, I think there's other underlying issues with that client, and as far as like why they don't want the house. Yeah. So we try to overcome that and just kind of work with everybody. Like, look, these are typical things: leaky faucets, scratches on the wall, carpet stains, and we do try to focus more on the safety hazards, the larger repair items like a furnace or an AC system that needs to be replaced or a water heater. And those are kind of more of the negotiating points of a deal in today's market.
And I always say to my buyers that, whatever happens in the home inspection, most of the time it's something that we can work through. And you can often use it as your advantage in regards to negotiations. So, if something comes up, we can, that's where you've got to use a good real estate agent, because you can then use whatever comes up to your advantage. I've had it before where we've got, like $20,000 off the price of the home. And the buyer went into it kind of knowing that there was those issues, and they actually factored that in their price. But because the home inspector did a great job, did a great report, we can then use that and then get money potentially knocked off the property. So people shouldn't be scared going into a home inspection. I actually think the more that comes up, the better. It means that the home inspector has done a great job, and you can use that as a great negotiation tool.
Totally agree with you. The value of the home inspection report to your guys' clients is huge when you look at it from that aspect. A home inspection costs $500 to $700 depending on the type of the house in general. The amount of credits or negotiating you can do off of that $500 to $700 report is an exponential value for your clients and what you can actually get for them.
And another thing I want to mention is doing a pre-inspection on listings. And I found this is absolutely valuable. I find that most of the top agents in the country do this. And so talk us through what that would look like.
So yeah, pre-listing inspection, slightly different than the buyer's inspection. Same concept though, we're going through the house, identifying any problems, wear and tear, and safety issues. But when we're doing it on the pre-listing side of things, it's really to create an advantage for the person selling the house. And so instead of identifying problems during escrow when we're in a time crunch and it's a high stress situation, we're allowing the homeowner to make any major repairs or things that are obviously going to come up and they're going to get dinged on by their buyer's inspection report, to get ahead of the curve and take proactive measures to resolve that issue before you're in a situation where you don't have the negotiating power because there's a timeline, you're on escrow, and everybody wants to close. On top of that, getting the right contractor in to give you a fair price in that situation can be difficult. So getting things handled ahead of time is definitely beneficial before a listing.
I highly recommend it. We had a deal recently where we got it done beforehand. And yeah, we managed to get a few of the things that came up done beforehand, so that when someone wrote an offer, we could actually say, look, just to let you know, here's the pre-home inspection that we did. This is what came up. This is what we fixed. There's a couple of issues that we don't see as a big deal that we haven't addressed. And in the end, they didn't even get a home inspection done on the property. They just took that even though I always recommend people still to get the home inspection done, they ended up doing that. So it can really help the seller. And then there's also be a time where they didn't want to get it done. And the deal fell through because a million things came up on what was a flip. And so they were kind of expecting a brand new house, even though it's never like that. So a million things come up and they just pulled the plug because they were like, I don't think they've done a great job if they've, supposed to have renovated the whole house. So it's one of those situations that you get ahead of the game and it can help in a million different ways. And
Absolutely.
There's a few things which people are always scared about in regards to buying a house and coming out of a home inspection. I've ran into a few of these. Now, obviously, foundation cracks is one of the big ones. So I gather, is it quite easy for you to spot them when you're doing an inspection?
Sure, absolutely. Now, there's different types of foundations, and each one has its own unique challenges to identifying defects. Typically, in the California area, we have slab on grade or a pier and post with a raised foundation. The slab on grade, that creates some unique challenges in finding cracks like under flooring material and whatnot. But as far as like along the stem wall around the exterior, we do have ways that we can identify any major foundational issues with the properties. Typically though, when we do find a foundation crack, it's kind of a standard type of a crack. Usually they're not major concerns. Concrete, there's a saying in the concrete world, if you don't want it to crack, don't pour concrete. A lot of concrete cracks. It's just kind of like the curing process is challenging to do it without any cracks. Now, the rebar inside of the concrete for the foundation is really what holds everything together as we start to get little cracks. So just because there's a crack doesn't mean it's the end of the world. We've still got rebar in that concrete holding it together, assuming it was done before 1940, where the standards were evolved. But the main thing is we're looking for the type of crack and the way the crack is sitting. If there's obvious movement, where it's shifted on either side of the crack, or we have kind of a V-shaped wedge-looking crack, that's more of a concern than just a standard hairline crack or a crack with a little gap.
And I've come across a couple of those before as well. One of them, they didn't want to do anything to fix the situation, so the deal fell through. Another one, the seller paid for it, and so it's one of those that these types of homes, quite often something will come up, but you get an inspection done, the inspector will bring it up, and then you can go from there. So I always say to everyone, don't just pull out of a deal straight away if you find something negative on a home inspection. Get your real estate agent to help you find a solution to that problem. And another one I want to talk about is mold. I remember once I had a deal. It's one of my early deals, and the seller and the selling agent tried to cover up mold. They tried to paint over it. Luckily, home inspector found the issue. So in regards to mold, what do you do to find mold, and is it as big a deal that we make out?
So mold's gotten a bad rap, and it's kind of been blown up out of proportion in some cases, for sure. There are certain cases where it is an actual issue, but typically it's very obvious then. And there are unfortunately situations where agents and sellers will try to hold a water intrusion or hide a water intrusion issue that's causing mold. Those can be a little more challenging to find. It does take a more experienced inspection firm to really know all of the little tricks of the trade to find all of those. Sometimes as a home inspector, when we talk about mold, agents will get very nervous and concerned. Obviously, it's killed deals before. For us, we kind of have a realistic approach to it. It's rare that a house is totally destroyed because of mold. Typically, it's a very small localized area that just requires a basic type of remediation. And 9 out of 10 times, it's really drywall and baseboard replacement with a dry out. Sometimes, if we got laminate flooring, it gets into that as well. But mold, oftentimes you hear all these outrageous insurance claim values. A lot of times, I don't know, it's a tough industry, but sometimes those remediation contractors are forced to go beyond what's probably considered reasonable out of an abundance of their liability, just because mold is such a contested item. But as a home inspector, we offer mold testing, not just to prove, oh, there's mold, there's a big problem, there's a safety hazard. We use it as a tool to verify that what type of problem it is. Is it a major mold problem, or is this just a minor issue that needs a couple square feet of drywall replaced and a little paint touch up when we're all done? And so that's one of the tools that you can use your inspector for when you have a mold issue. An experienced inspector that has had a few situations with mold and sees how they go can really give you some honest feedback into what the repairs would involve. And a lot of times people are fearing the worst when it's really just an easy fix. And if there is remediation, a lot of times it can be done for a couple $1,000 or less.
Cool. And I gather termite, you guys, obviously you'll have a good idea if there's termite on the property as well. It pretty much is on most homes in Southern California.
Yeah, Southern California is unique to those guys. So the way California is regulated, home inspectors really aren't technically qualified to report and document the termite damage. There's a different certification for that specific to termite companies. We do, however, identify it on the report. Now, we can't tell you should fumigate or you should do local treatment, but we can see termite damage. We know what termite damage is. Often it leads to wood rot because the termites tunnel into the wood, and then when it rains, water follows into those tunnels, soaks into the wood, and causes wood rot. And so we identify it just as a courtesy so that everybody's on the same playing field and we know what's on the property. Also, if the termite guys actually miss a section, then you can compare it to our inspection report and talk with the termite companies about maybe going back out and documenting what they missed, just so that you guys can use it for your repair.
Yeah, when we write offers, we always put in, for there to be a termite report done and for clearance to be, paid for by the seller. But it's one of those things that normally the home inspection's done before the termites. And so normally buyers, it's one of the first things they ask is there termites? So it's just useful to know when you're doing the inspection that, yes, that we have found something. The termite guy will tell you exactly what that's going to cost, etc. And most of the time when we do it, the seller pays for it anyway.
That's great. Now, every now and then they've been waiving those lately, though, just because the market's been so hot. And we'll get in there and the buyers are a little more concerned about termites, and we just make sure we cover as much as we can. But as far as any costs, we just
and the truth is, right now, is people are having to waive inspections and all sorts because of the market that we've been in. I still highly recommend people, even if they are, waiving all of their contingencies, to still get an inspection done.
Absolutely.
Because, and often I'll be quite sneaky with this. Here's a little sneaky tip for people, but even if you're looking to remove all your contingencies, you often have 2 to 3 days to put your deposit in. If you can try and get your inspection done the very, very next day before you put your money in, if there's major problems on the property that you're not happy with, you can try and negotiate, even though you're not really supposed to be doing that, or you can pull out before it. So there's a couple of little tricks that you can use. But having a home inspection done on a property is an absolute must. Even if the seller has got one done, I don't always trust it.
Completely agree with you. And not just trying to sell home inspections. Obviously, we're biased and in the market, but going into a real estate transaction, sight unseen, with no real detail of, what's going on with the components would be terrifying to me. In a situation like that, a client could order a basic inspection, like a 4 or a 5 point. And that's really where we just cover the major items like the roof, the furnace, the AC, the water heater, the plumbing, the electric panel. And we're just looking for those major safety components and high expense items for repairs. We're not worried about any of the nicks on the walls or carpet
if someone's going to be pulling out the kitchen anyway, who cares if there's a leak with a faucet? But you're going to still want to make sure that the roof, as an example, is in good nick.
Exactly. And those are typically a more affordable inspection that takes less time. And so if you're just looking to get in and just make sure the major components, the foundation, the roof, and all your expensive big ticket items check out okay, that'd be a great option for somebody.
And what areas do you currently cover?
Geographically, we're all over San Diego,
Yep.
all of Riverside, and then most of Orange County.
Perfect. And if someone wants to book a home inspection tomorrow, is it often, in your case, is it often the agent that books it, or is it often the buyer, or is it a mix? And then off the back of that, how are they going to get hold of you to book a home inspection when they get their place?
Great question. So we get bookings from both the buyers and the agents. Oftentimes, we find our more experienced agents will do the booking themselves. It often goes a lot smoother with scheduling and coordinating with the seller and the listing agent just to make sure we have access. We can handle it either way, though. However you guys prefer, you could have your client call us. We'll take care of them. We'll spend plenty of time on the phone with them, answering all their questions about home inspections, what to expect, how to use the report to their advantage, what not to be afraid of. Sylvia, my office manager, is well versed in all of your clients' questions and can definitely handle those. As far as booking, you can go to our website at calwestinspect.com, and there's a page on there where you can actually do an inspection request, or you could call our office directly. It's probably the best way to see what's available for inspections. And our phone number is area code 760-679-5659.
Brilliant. Is there anything that you want to talk about today?
Oh, I'm just really looking forward to getting familiar with your agents and providing them with a lot of information that can maybe help educate them on the home inspection process and how they can use it to their advantage and help their clients and build their reputation as a quality agent.